I cut my business trip short because I wanted to surprise my wife, Natalie. After 3 weeks of back-to-back meetings in Seattle, all I could think about was getting home, wrapping my arms around her, and spending a quiet weekend together. I even stopped at her favorite bakery to buy the lemon cheesecake she loved. As I pulled into our driveway just after 8 p.m., the house looked completely normal. Her car was parked outside, the living room lights were on, and soft music drifted through an open upstairs window. Smiling to myself, I unlocked the front door as quietly as possible, hoping to catch her by surprise. Halfway down the hallway, I froze. From our bedroom upstairs, I heard my wife laugh before breathlessly calling another man's name. The cheesecake slipped from my hands and hit the floor. My heart pounded so hard I could barely breathe. Instead of rushing upstairs, I slowly lowered myself into my recliner, trying to understand what I had just heard. Had my entire marriage been built on a lie? I sat there without moving, staring at the family photos hanging on the wall. Every picture captured a different chapter of our 12-year marriage. Our wedding day, our first home, birthdays, road trips, and countless ordinary moments I had always believed were genuine. Upstairs, the muffled voices continued, followed by another burst of laughter that made my stomach twist. My first instinct was to charge upstairs and demand answers, but years of negotiating high-stakes business deals had taught me one important lesson. People reveal far more when they don't know they're being watched. I silently pulled out my phone and started recording the time and everything I could hear, determined to stay calm until I knew the truth. A few minutes later, I heard footsteps crossing the bedroom floor. Then the bedroom door slowly creaked open. I looked toward the staircase just as an unfamiliar pair of expensive men's dress shoes appeared at the top step, followed by a voice that made my blood run cold. Why did that voice sound strangely familiar? The man stepped into view, and my heart nearly stopped. It wasn't a stranger. It was Ethan, my college roommate and the best man at our wedding. I hadn't seen him in almost 4 years after he accepted a job in another state, and as far as I knew, he had never even visited our house without telling me first. He looked completely relaxed, carrying a travel bag over one shoulder as if he belonged there. A few seconds later, Natalie followed him into the hallway, smiling until she noticed me sitting silently in the recliner below. The color drained from her face. Ethan froze halfway down the stairs, gripping the handrail so tightly his knuckles turned white. No one spoke. The silence felt heavier than any argument could have. Then Natalie whispered my name and took one hesitant step forward. Before she could explain anything, Ethan looked directly at me and quietly said, "Daniel, this isn't what you think." But if it wasn't what I thought, why had she been calling his name from our bedroom? I didn't raise my voice or move from my chair. Instead, I looked at both of them and calmly said, "Then explain it." Natalie swallowed hard before telling Ethan to wait downstairs while she talked to me alone. I shook my head. "No," I replied. "If there's an explanation, everyone can hear it." She closed her eyes for a moment as if trying to find the right words. Finally, she admitted Ethan had arrived unexpectedly that afternoon because he needed a place to stay after a difficult divorce. According to her, they had spent hours catching up, talking about old memories and the mistakes that had changed his life. It sounded believable, until I reminded her of the one thing I couldn't ignore. "When I walked in," I said quietly, "I heard you call another man's name from our bedroom." Natalie immediately denied hiding anything, but her trembling voice betrayed her confidence. Then Ethan took a deep breath, stepped forward, and said, "Daniel, the bedroom isn't where this story started." Those words made me realize there was something much bigger neither of them had told me. Ethan rubbed his face and looked at Natalie before finally speaking. "I came here because I found something you deserve to know." He reached into his travel bag and placed a thick envelope on the coffee table between us. Inside were printed emails, bank statements, and copies of signed documents. At first, none of it made sense. Then I noticed my signature on several financial forms I had never signed. My stomach tightened. Ethan explained that while helping a mutual friend with a legal case, he discovered someone had been using my personal information to secure loans and move money through shell accounts. The investigation eventually led to a familiar address. My own home. Natalie immediately burst into tears, insisting it wasn't what it looked like. She claimed she had been manipulated by someone she trusted and never intended to hurt me. I looked from the documents to my wife, realizing the name I had heard upstairs might not have been the biggest betrayal after all. If Natalie wasn't hiding an affair, then who had been stealing my identity, And why had Ethan risked everything to warn me? Natalie slowly admitted that nearly a year earlier she had invested money with a man she met through a luxury networking group. He promised incredible returns and convinced her to keep everything secret until the profits came in. When the investment collapsed, she panicked. Afraid I would discover she had lost almost our entire savings, she allowed the man to use my financial information while promising it was only temporary paperwork. Instead, he opened fraudulent accounts and buried us in debt. She had been calling Ethan's name upstairs because he had just shown her the evidence proving she had been scammed. They had rushed to the bedroom only because my home office, where our financial files were stored, was connected to it. Natalie fell to her knees, sobbing as she admitted every terrible decision. Ethan quietly added that federal investigators were already building a case against the fraud ring and needed my cooperation. I stared at the documents, realizing my marriage might survive the absence of an affair, but could it survive the lies that had nearly destroyed our future? The following morning, I met with the investigators while Natalie remained at home, overwhelmed by the consequences of her choices. They confirmed Ethan had been telling the truth. The fraud ring had targeted professionals through exclusive investment events, convincing victims to hide everything from their families until it was too late. Because Natalie had willingly signed some documents and concealed the scheme for months, she could face serious legal and financial consequences, even though she had also been manipulated. Driving home, I realized my anger had changed. I wasn't furious because she had made a mistake. I was devastated because she had chosen deception every single day afterward. When I walked through the front door, Natalie was sitting exactly where I had left her, still wearing yesterday's clothes. She quietly looked up and asked, "Is there any chance we can fix this?" I took a long breath before answering. My decision wouldn't just determine the future of our marriage, it would determine the future of both our lives. I sat across from Natalie and looked at the woman I had loved for 12 years. "You didn't lose my trust in one day," I said quietly. "You lost it every time you chose another lie instead of telling me the truth." Tears rolled down her face as she admitted she had been ashamed and terrified that I would leave if I found out how badly she had messed up. I told her the painful truth. I could have forgiven a financial mistake, but I couldn't ignore months of deception that nearly destroyed everything we had built together. Over the following weeks, we worked with investigators to recover what we could, but our marriage couldn't be repaired as easily as our finances. We finalized an amicable divorce months later. Looking back, I realized the most painful part wasn't losing my wife. It was discovering that honesty had disappeared long before love did. Sometimes the greatest act of self-respect is accepting that trust, once repeatedly broken, cannot always be rebuilt.